Wie bist du?
Wie geht's? Sehr gut. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. In part 1, we see Alan's shop and we go over a few guns that are currently in the works. We talk about his plans for the year and his push to get a few guns done before the upcoming shows. We cover other topics as we bump around with nothing scripted. Let's pick up where we left off with his personal hunting rifle he calls Thor.
What? Thor is the god of fire and lightning, right? Well, one day we were out hunting and I said, man, this thing hit like the hammer of Thor, and it stuck.
That's cool.
It's an early let me back up. It's an early Lancashire gun that I built. I bought the barrel and piece of wood. It was already inlet, and the lock mortise was cut from Dave Dodds. Dave was laying on his deathbed. He had cancer, and he said there's something messed up with the lock mortise. I said, well, I'll figure it out. It's a Getz barrel, 42 inches long, nothing fancy, just a 60, but it's a 60 caliber, and it's a plain piece of sugar maple.
Hold on a second. You hear that, Salmon Rick? Plain. Doesn't have to be curly. Alright, continue.
Well, it has a little curl. It has, see that little
they think I'm an idiot for taking the time to build a gun that don't have curl.
Well,
I want a simple gun.
I have used that many times already. If you need a piece of curly wood to build a pretty gun, then you're doing something wrong. When you do relief carving on plain wood, the carving holds its own merit. It actually carves cleaner because there's no curl to fight with. There's no figure or anything to pop out with. So it's just an early Andreas Albrecht, some Jacob Dickert maybe, and a lot of Al Martin. And I just made and when I shoulder this gun, it just fits me like a glove.
Mm-hmm.
Like an idiot, I almost sold it back in October at the Fall Frolic show. And maybe I'm an idiot for not selling it.
Why?
Well, there's a lot of money laying on the table that I walked away. And as a poor gun maker,
Somebody wanted your hunting gun.
He wanted it so bad. He even offered me the money, and then he said I could even hunt with it this last year.
You gonna tell me what he offered you?
$8,000. Mm-hmm. And that was, for a basic hunting gun. But it's got the look. It's even got a little bit of paint splatter. It's got, and I learned that from Earl Lanning. Earl Lanning always said, see the paint there?
Mm-hmm.
He said, when you're painting a house, you grab the gun, you move it away so you keep painting. You get paint on the gun. So I did it, And I aged it originally, and I finished this. I built this gun probably 9 or 10 years ago. I have to look it up when I did build the gun. I shot 2 buck with it. I shot that buck with it, and a 5-point this last year.
Yeah, right.
Number of does, missed some deer with it too, but it's starting to take on a patina. I don't baby my guns. This is my...
That the one you fell off the bike with?
I fell off the bicycle with it, yeah. It hit ice. Put a big gash in it that day, I think it was. And well, I just darkened it up a little bit. But, it's getting some hammering. It's getting some... It's starting to look like a good original. That's what the guy from Virginia, my client, who ordered a gun. So I now have a piece of wood. Just so happens that I have a piece of wood, plain sugar maple. The barrel Bobby Wheat just brought to me, or just made for me. It actually, the only difference between this barrel and that barrel, this one's about a 1/4 inch longer because Bobby can't read a tape measure.
Mm-hmm. I heard that before.
Anyway, Thor #2.
Look at that.
It's going to be a bench copy of this gun.
Really?
So when I'm done with them, when I'm done with this gun, I'm going to hand them both to Grant Hall from Virginia. Said, now which one did you say you wanted? He said, oh, that sounds fun. So
that's cool.
So
I'm going to stop this camera and hold that gun once.
Before I built this gun, I remember at a gun show, might have been the KRA show or the CLA, Frank House was saying that a lot of the original the pipes were really thin, the metal was really thin, and they didn't file them in, they actually hammered them or shaped them in. I'm like, that's a challenge for a Pennsylvania Dutch boy. So I built this gun with 25 thousandths brass, which is pretty thin. And it's all filed. There's no hammering done. Except when I was riding the bicycle, this here tab or whatever you want to call it, it's all wrinkled and dimpled. Mm-hmm. I was going up over the mountain after I got off the bicycle, and my hand brushed across the gun. I'm like, the entry pipe was sticking straight out and it was flat. What the heck happened? I was for a long time up on the mountain. What did I do? How did that happen? So I went down to the bicycle. And I was hunting with a bunch of Mennonite Amish guys. We were doing pushes in flintlock season. And when you get on the bicycle, I had my hand on the handlebars, and the shifter or the brake clamp that holds the shifter or the clamp has like a little nub where a set screw goes in, and that was bouncing off. It just hammered the crap out of it. So all my brass, except for the butt plate and trigger guard on most guns, and I say most guns because every now and then I'll form a butt plate out of sheet brass. And there's a rifle here I'll bring out in a little bit to show you. That's the pig gun. That's a handmade butt plate. But anyway,
that's on your website.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Pig
I have
gun.
a new website now.
Yeah.
My son Tucker just built, which is not done yet. It might never be. But anyway, I use sand cast butt plate and trigger guards. Drew Hedgecock, and now his daughter is casting those out of North Carolina to my patterns.
Nice.
But the side plate, the entry pipe, and the nose caps are all handmade. If it gets a brass patch box, they're handmade as well. I'll lay that here for a second. This is a bench copy of a Henry Mauger rifle. Henry Mauger worked in Berks County. I built this for Don Stith, who is getting up there in years, and he's just sold it to a guy in Missouri or Arkansas, and I'm going to deliver it to the CLA show for him. When you do a patch box, you like to do it like the original.
Clean.
Even the inside of my patch box has to be colored right. And this one here could use a little bit of, I might give this gun a little bit. This is gun number 125. I just looked it up.
Oh yeah?
And
do you know what year you would have made it then?
04.
04.
04. So that's, 22 years old. 18 years old. I'm not good with numbers. But Don Stith gave me the barrel, and this is an original Ketlin lock that he supplied with it, which functions pretty good. But he never shot it. This gun is this old and it's still brand new. I had the original Henry Mauger laying on my workbench when I built this one.
Do you want people to use your guns, or you rather them hanging on the wall? You don't care, just as long as you get your money.
Well, yeah. To answer that question, there are some guns that are art guns that don't get used, and I get it. But when I see a gun being used and they get the character built up, it's something to do with it,
Yeah.
You have to use them, take care of them, I just answered an email from a guy that just bought a gun from Bob McBride, and I built that gun in 02, I think it was, and the guy that owned it originally, either he couldn't do it anymore or whatever, the barrel got corroded inside, so in order to fix it, Bob McBride sent that barrel to Bobby Hoyt, and Bobby pulled the reamer through it to the next caliber larger. Now it's a 20-year-old gun or whatever with a brand new bore. So
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
I hear you though. Like you want people to take care of them. You took the time to build it.
It's not really hard to take care of a gun if somebody teaches you a little bit, and you take a little time to do it.
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
Yeah, it was getting really annoying this weekend to clean it after a single shot at a groundhog every time. I clean it, put it away. Oh, there's another one. I clean it.
Cleaning a gun, to me, a clean gun is a safe gun. You get all the crud, and they're going to function and perform better. But if you don't clean it for a week, it's not going to kill it. I think what hurts a gun more than anything is if you clean it mediocre. And you expose that metal to some kind of a cleaning solvent and don't stop that, that's going to be more corrosive and more rust prone than black powder itself. The second gun I built, they just came out with that new Murphy's oil soap and peroxide and alcohol, I think. I remember that goop, and I would put it down there, and I left it in there overnight. That boar pitted overnight from that stuff, not from black powder. So, mad at myself, but chalk it up as a learning curve. You know?
What would you say to somebody that's new into flintlocks? Or there's some young people, you know, like myself. I started in 2016. What was some advice?
Okay. As in gun making or flintlock?
Well, yeah, okay. Let's do gun making for someone that's interested in gun making, and then maybe just shooting black powder.
I hear a lot of chatter online of people like, "Oh, there's no kids in this, and no young people in flintlocking, whether it's gun making or shoots." And I remember I built a gun for a good friend of mine in Bucks County, and he always said, "People get into flintlocking about 40 years old, maybe 50." You know, they did the modern movement. They did the bows or whatever, if they're hunters. You know, and they want something more challenging, or something different. They've done it all. They want to do. Let's go with open sight flintlock. You know, sort of like trying to catch a 8-inch brown trout on a bamboo fly rod versus a spinning rod. You know, it's more something connecting about it. You know, something romantic about it. My advice for people who want to get into full-time gun making, don't do it. It's a stupid way to make a living. That all being said, it's the best way to make a living. If you like money, flintlocking is not a great way to make hundreds of thousands a year. There's better careers out there, but you're going to be miserable because you hate what you do. You want to be a lawyer, solving other people's problems in 20 minutes that they just accumulated in 20 years. That's lawyer work. Gun making, so I have three sons, and everybody asks me a lot of the time, "So your kids are going to take over, right?" I say, absolutely not. If they would want to, I would show them how to build guns, and we'd have a good time. Like Brad Emming and his son Shane, they have a good thing going, but everybody's different. You gotta wanna be a builder. If you want to dabble with it in the evenings after work, there's no better hobby. If you like working with your hands, taking a piece of maple or a piece of walnut and inletting a piece of metal called a barrel or a lock and sculpting it into a functional form of art, you know, that's where it's at. Going to the different events, showcasing your work, and making it a hobby is a lot of fun. I took my hobby and turned it into a so-called career.
Right.
Yeah, I can make a lot of money, but you're trying to figure out a way to stay away from taxes or the high tax bracket. The hardest thing about being a full-time gun maker is, can you be motivated enough to not screw away your time dabbling on Facebook or gardening or you got to be dead. Some days I come in here at 6 o'clock in the morning and I work till 5 or 6 at night. That's a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
Maybe a short lunch break or whatever, you know. But if you have a 40-gun backlog, you better be dedicated with your time.
Right.
When somebody wants to come over for a visit, like you, it would have worked at any time for me today, but since you were coming over in the afternoon, I'm good because I got my morning worth of work in. I felt like I got my day's work in. When I was younger, I used to work more hours. Now I'm in my 50s, starting to slow down a little bit. It's not as romantic as it used to be, but I still like what I do.
Right. What advice with muzzle loaders would you give to people that are getting into it?
Oh, the people that are actually buying a gun from me?
Well, buying a gun from anybody. Somebody like you got a 25-year-old guy, or say like myself in my low 30s. You get to the point where what you were saying is like the whole method hunting. So I used a compound, then I went to traditional archery, and then I was like, man, like the other year I used her Pabst 300 Savage and shot a doe with open sights because I never shot one. It's the method. It was the challenge of the kill rather than makes it interesting. So I got into flintlocks because I wanted a challenge, and then
I seen your video the other day of you crawling after the groundhog. I've done that so many times. It's the pursuit of trying to get close enough for getting in within a sensible distance, trying to whack a groundhog or a deer or whatever you're hunting with a flintlock. Flintlock hunting, what I like about it, I used to be a big rifle hunter, and I still hunt rifle. I don't mind to hunt 2 weeks of flintlock season, but the problem is of rifle season. But the problem is the hunting has sort of changed in the last couple of years when the doe numbers went down, and the hunters now in flintlock season, not many people are out anymore. There's more now than there used to be, but it's still not like rifle season. And the deer go back into their moving, and they get back into their patterns of moving. In addition to that, I have a lot of friends who I built guns for, or know people that have flintlocks, and they invite me on their private places, on their private properties, and know people that have a 100-acre property that is a honey hole for.
Yeah, and let's go back to that. So I got invited to go with Alan, and our other buddy invited me to go along to doing these drives, and it was a conflict between my wife and I. She didn't want me going that Saturday. So I went out that Friday evening, and I was like, I see a doe, I'm shooting it. And that was my doe I shot, and I put my buck tag on it. And the next day, how many deer did you see on that drive?
Everybody calls me a liar. I always tell people I'm a very good bush shooter, but I'm not a good liar. Rick Browse was right above me, and it was cold. It was a very long drive. We only did one drive that forenoon, and the air was wrong. But the deer I could see deer moving. I seen between 60 and 80 deer. Estimate. They just bloop, 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 bloop. They just kept coming and coming and coming, like, wow. But they would never come close enough for flintlock shot. They were about 150 yards away, maybe a little bit further. Rick's like, why didn't you shoot? I'm like, what? It was too far.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't mind taking a long shot, but I got to have something to shoot at.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't have a scope rifle. And
Yeah.
I had old Thor with me, but I remember standing there for like 4 hours. It was like 10 degrees that morning. It was bitter cold. I was numb. That was on public land.
Yeah. I'm going to be going to that one next year.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
I'm hoping to.
I think might check it out during rifle season. It is game land. And,
Yeah.
But I promised Rick I would not bring anybody with.
Yeah. Right.
Other than my own son. And I swore them to secrecy.
Yeah.
Where it's at, how to get to it. And they don't care. They're not. My kids are not hunters.
Yeah.
They go with me because I make them.
Yeah.
My daughter is more of a hunter than they are.
Yeah.
But they entered deer hunting when the deer numbers were really flat, and the
mid-2000s.
Not everybody wants to do this,
Yeah.
And my grandson, he's now 9, 10, absolutely, he's just crazy about it.
It's awesome.
Different kid, But when somebody asked me about gun making about my kids, I said, no, you gotta wanna.
Yeah.
Not everybody's a craftsman. Not everybody wants to whittle on a piece of wood.
Yeah.
Gun making. People ask me, what's the hard thing about gun making? Well, you have, other than flies around, you have one shot of getting it right. Because you don't, if you screw up and when you're framing a house, you just rip the 2x4 off and put another one in the right size or whatever, for an example. But gun making, it's so confined. Everything's so, there's so many things that can and will go wrong. First thing is layout, having the right look, but having your fits nice and tight, and you don't get a second chance to make a first impression in gun making. And you're working with so many different mediums. You're working with wood, you're working with brass and iron and steel, and this one don't have.
And you're working with the contour.
And everything's on a slope, and then you're trying to make it fit and feel good. Years ago, I built a Lehigh Schimmel. I built a lot of Schimmel, a lot of plain hunting guns because they're more affordable and they're sort of simple elegance. But anyway, we won't get into that today. But I built a Lehigh Schimmel because Bruce Moyer, he's an old guy now from Emmaus, Pennsylvania, and owns. At one time, he had like 1,200 guns in the house. A lot of those were original Kentucky rifles. He was a big gun collector. He said, nobody can make a Lehigh rifle over 45 caliber that doesn't hurt your cheekbone. I'm like, oh, really? That's a challenge. So I built a 58 caliber with a fairly light barrel, and I did it in a Schimmel without a butt plate that helped determine if I wanted to change the nose of the comb or the slope of the comb, it allowed me to do it without having a butt plate to contend with. Mm-hmm. I built this gun, 58 caliber, went back to the range, and I laid it on the sandbags, put 100 grains of powder down in a 563 round ball, and I laid it on, which is the worst position you can shoot a Lehigh rifle. When I squeezed the trigger, the gun went, never bit me. The first Lehigh I ever built, which is now owned by Dwight Hummel from Hummel's Gun Shop. I think he still owns it. I need to stop over there and see if he still has it. Gun number 9, or number 7, or number 8 was a Lehigh. No, it was not gun number 9. I remember very well because I hunted with it for a couple of years. After 8 or 9 shots, you had a numb cheek. It hurt. Too much Roman nose, too much. I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't, but I really didn't know what I was doing then. And that was a 54 caliber with a 2 light up a barrel for a Lehigh rifle, and it would jump up and nail you right in the cheek.
Well, and it's funny you say that because before I decided on the step wrist, I wanted to build myself a big calibered gun because I used this 45 last year, and I was like, I'm going to go with like a 58 or 54. And I said, I just like the look of the Lehigh, and I was like, I'm going to do a Lehigh. And Sam and Rick said, you're crazy. The design of that gun will pound your cheek. They said, now Alan Martin has it figured out, but they said,
and a 48-inch barrel with a 54 caliber, probably an 8-pound gun to all said and done. It's going to feel good, but if it's not, I'm not letting it go.
Yeah,
I'll build the guy another one. Because that's what I care about.
Yeah.
To me, stock shaping and architecture is what makes it. I don't care how fancy the gun is or how pretty the gun is. I do, but if you don't get that schimmel right, if you don't get that form right, the rest of it is just overlay. It's like that pretty woman when she looks great without jewelry or lipstick or clothing. When a true beautiful woman, natural beauty, you just add earrings to her, then she glows.
Yeah.
But she doesn't need it.
Right.
That's to me what a schimmel is. And I build a fair number of them for obvious reasons because they're more affordable. A lot of people like just to go deer hunting. They don't care about patch boxes or carving. And historically, they're historically accurate guns. Maybe not so much in the upper Susquehanna area, but in the Berks County, Lehigh, Bucks County, Chuck Dixon and Dixon Muzzler Shop have quite a few. I own an original Lehigh Schimmel with a butt plate. I call that a Schimmel Deluxe.
I was going to ask you, do you have many? Just that one original?
Just that one original. No, I have several throughout the years.
Okay. Because that has got to be... You said the original is the best teacher. It makes sense. So it would be so nice to have
being a member of the KRA, this coming weekend is a show in Pittsburgh or in Cranberry, and I'm probably not going to go this year just because of obvious reasons, but there you can walk in and pick up a J.P. Beck or Isaac Haynes or the Herman Rupp or the Christian Erder rifles or some great early Southern gun. They're there. You can pick them up.
So this is
this gun here. This gun here is a fantasy gun that I designed. And the first time I went to Germany, the guy I built this gun for, Paul, bought this lock. The original Swiss lock, 1720s. My gun maker, my gun collecting buddy over there, Jürgen Mallory. We brought the lock home, and he had it for a year or so. I said, hey, Paul, what you going to do with that lock? He said, I don't know, what do you think? I said, I think we ought to build a gun around it. So the gun was built around a 1720s lock. My whatever grandfather came over in 1727 from Bern, Switzerland. The Mennonites came over. They were coming over by the boatloads, getting out of persecution and whatever, the Anabaptist movement into Lancaster County. And I got to thinking, what would the first Lancaster County rifle look like, built in that time period? It would not look like a Lancaster as we know it today. So, being they were from Switzerland, being that the lock is from Switzerland, I had Bobby Hoyt make me a barrel to my specs, and it has almost an 1 3/8 breech. It's got a big hole. It's a 69 caliber. And it's 40 3/4 inches long, and the balance is just phenomenal. It's just, I got it right. Sometimes you just hit a home run. Piece of sugar maple from locally here in Union County. I think Fred Miller probably cut it down. So this is and being I just came home from Germany, I got to hold a lot of original German rifles. And some of these had a wide butt plate. Well, you're not going to buy a butt plate like that. And this is a butt plate that I hammered out of sheet brass.
I mean, how wide is it?
2 3/8, I think. and it came up. It has like an oak leaf finial. Story is, Diefendorfer was the founder of New Holland, and he was brought into town. This is before New Holland was called New Holland. It was Earl Township. They called it Earl Town, and the nickname for the area was the Sila, or the pig swamp, because on the north side of town there was a bog, and they used to run the pigs in there. It was called the pig swamp in Pennsylvania Dutch. So he was brought into town. Diefendorfer was brought into town with his a brother, probably a church brother, by the name of Martin. It was Christian Martin. It was David's brother that came with him in 1727, and they built a cabin under an oak tree. That's why I put oak leaves on it. This is my fantasy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And it has a little oak flower. That's an oak flower. Yeah,
That's called an oak flower.
Them little seedy things that hang down on an oak tree. Got a little bit of oak things going on. And I named the gun Molly, or Paul named the gun Molly, because they came over, the boat they came over on from Rottenburg to Philadelphia was named the Molly.
Wow.
And then, so I named it Alan Martin Saeue Schwamm, 1727.
That is awesome. That is so cool. There's like,
I was fortunate to buy this gun back. Paul liquidated his collection. He sort of got out of the collecting thing. I bought it back, and my friend in Germany's like, he said, well, you need to sell me that gun. I said, well, I could have sold it a couple of times to other people. He said, you sell it to anybody but me, we're finished. That's coming from a German, so I knew he was serious.
Wow. That is the coolest thing. You got all that family history and background. And
well, Earl Lanning asked me a long time ago, he said, Alan, where'd you learn how to build these fine Pennsylvania rifles? I said, well, I was born and raised in Lancaster County. Ich sprechen Sie Deutsch. I said, I guess I get it to the titty. And Earl had tears running down. He was laughing so hard.